You know, so I had this emptiness, you know, and I look at my daughter and I'm like, gosh, she's such an innocent little kid. She's just so pretty and like an angel, you know what I mean? And I'm like, how do I raise this kid? I'm a mess. You know, what am I? Go for your dreams, honey. You're going to be a happy person. I got everything I ever wanted and more, and I'm like miserable. So, you know, with a relationship like that with my ex-wife, you know, you could probably predict that we didn't last. And she ended up leaving in the worst way. I was on tour with Metallica and System of a Down, Kid Rock. I was touring, and they would invite me to go on their private plane, and Metallica's like the biggest metal band ever. And so I'm like living that dream, just going, oh my gosh, I'm sitting next to Lars Ulrich and doing all this stuff. And meanwhile, my wife calls me and says, I'm leaving you. And what she did was she had a bunch of skinheads move into my house. They were doing all kinds of methamphetamines. My daughter was there. And it was the biggest, my life turned into a nightmare. My dream was just becoming a nightmare. And it was like the worst thing ever. I was losing my mind because I know this guy was in there and taking my wife and, you know, and just doing whatever. And I was a rock star on the road going, you know, doesn't he know who I am? He can't do this to me, you know. She would deny it, but I knew she was messing with this guy. And I called my friend, Donnie, and I was like, Donnie, you got to go over to my house. Get these guys out of there. My kid's there. Go see what's up. So he went to my friend's house and grabbed a gun. And because he didn't know what these skinheads were going to do, so he went there packing, and he's like, and when he got there, luckily, there was no one there but a babysitter and my daughter. So I found that as an opportunity to go get my daughter out of this madness. I had 3 days off, and I flew home and got my daughter, and by then I was a single dad. Pretty much I got divorced later, and I was juggling this rock star life, and you know, I got a divorce, and my wife didn't show up to get custody of the kid or nothing. The drugs took over her mind, and it seems like her love for the real things in life, you know. And, you know, I was messed up, but she was just like off the rocker. She was gone, hanging around with skinheads. She just left everything, and I was like, it was the most worst feeling in the world, especially to look at my little daughter and to know that her mom chose that. You know, she's all smiling, walking around, and you know, like this precious little girl, you know, and she didn't really know anything, but here I am knowing all the dark stuff that's going on. But I sucked it up and said, okay, I got to do what's right. You know, I went from drinking 30 beers a night down to like 6, and I tried to get my life together, and I did for a while. I started working out. I'm like, I got to do this for my kid. I started working out. I started eating vegetables, going to the gym, and my body's like, what are you doing? No. So I tried this for a while, and you know, I felt good. And then 9/11 came, and everyone's talking about like World War stuff and anthrax, and I don't have God, so I'm like, if the world's going down, I'm going to go out with a buzz. So I started drinking again, you know? You don't know. If you don't have God, like, you don't know. And so I started drinking, and I started getting into pills, and I started, you know, I was single now. So I'm going to try to be a rock star like this, you know, tell my bodyguards to go get girls every night. And that was a disaster. And, like, when you get me girls or whatever, they'd end up, like, punching me, too. I don't know why. I got a punch me sign on my face or something. But girls always hit me. But anyway, so that didn't work, and I got a bad Vicodin habit. I was taking like 17 Vicodin a day, and that scared me, so I quit that, and I went to a little personal rehab, just in a hotel. I got off of that, and I swore I was going to do methamphetamines. I swore, because I saw what it did to a heart of a mother of my child, you know, and I did not understand how a person can leave the precious little child, you know, that you gave birth to. I was like, man, I thought she was a scumbag. I thought she was just the worst of people. And I was like, man. But as I was really drunk one night, I was hanging around with a guy, and he had some employees under him, and he said that he can get some speed, some methamphetamines. And I was like, I'll just do it this one time, you know. And so we did it, and the next weekend came around, and I was like, I'll just do it one more time. You know, and then the next weekend came, and I had an 8-ball of speed, and I took it on the road with me. And I was like, I'll just do it this tour. I'm snorting it every day, all night, and it was the worst addiction I ever had. I didn't tell my band members. They were asking why I was skinny, you know, but I was like, I don't know, just, you know, whatever. And they're like, all right, well, just be careful with the pills because I know you take pills. And I was like, yeah, it's just pills, you know. But meanwhile, I'm like snorting like the worst drug out there, you know. And I'm going like paranoid and tour after tour after tour. I was like, I'm going to quit after this tour. The tour would come and I didn't quit. And they're like, we're going to go on our first Korn world tour. And I'm like, great. I'm a speed addict. And I was like, I got to take my drugs because I can't. Either that or I got to tell everybody I'm a drug fiend and I need to go to rehab. And I was too proud to do that. And so I took my drugs all over the world, to Asia, to Australia, to Europe. Sometimes I ran out and I would have my dealers send me 8 balls over in the mail. And I was risking my freedom. I was risking my life. It was the darkest dungeon you could ever, I cannot even explain it with words. It was the darkest thing. Because, you know, I came from a home, my parents are still together, and you know, we had good values and everything. We weren't religious or anything, but you know, it just that doing that bad stuff was like not me. You know what I mean? It was just going against everything that was me, and it was so dark. But after 2 years of snorting lines every day, losing my mind, I thought people were crawling in my attic, and just I was so addicted to porno, like the worst sites, you know, that like I just going against my conscience. And just drifting away from my friends. The money couldn't give me the happiness or anything. And so after the 2 years, my nose was just raw, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I went to a rehab place as an outpatient, like from Hollywood, the best doctor. You know, he's like, I got so many people off drugs. Don't worry about it. You know, I'll get you off. So he gave me pills to get off the drugs. So that didn't work. I went running back to the crystal meth, and I was just like, man, I really thought that. Cause I'd look on the internet while I was high on drugs, and I'd look at the success rate of getting off it, and it was horrible. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be stuck on this stuff. And I started reading about the depression and how many people can't cope after quitting crystal meth, and I'm like, oh man, I just wanted to die. I wish like I would die. Some nights I'd take Xanax just to get to sleep after doing lines all day, and I was just hoping my heart would stop so I would just not have to wake up in this madness anymore. But at that time, I was such a functioning addict and alcoholic, man. It was a really bad demonic gift, but I was doing real estate deals while I was a meth head, you know, with these guys, and I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, and everything, and these guys were Christians. It was a setup. And I thought I was doing it to make money, you know. And these guys, they ended up, you know, inviting me to church. And I was like, I got to get sober, man. That rehab didn't work. You know, I got to get sober somehow. So I'll go hang around with the Christians that don't drink or cuss or party or nothing like that, right? I just thought they'd rub off. I had no idea about spiritual life being real or God being real or nothing. So I went there. I ended up staying up all night because something in my flesh was saying, okay, you better party it up because you're getting ready to quit. So I was just doing more and more. It was so sick, though, because my daughter's like sleeping in the next room, and I'm across the other side of the house just snorting lines all night. I ended up, the guy picked me up, and I put a hood over my head, and I went to church. And when I got there, I was like, you know, I was up for like 3 days or whatever, and I got there, and all the people were worshiping with their hands up, and I was looking at them, just going like, man, these people are weirder than me, you know. I'm like, what are they looking at up there, you know? I didn't get it, but I felt this peace, and I felt this stuff. And many of you know that sometimes when God's calling you, you can go somewhere and you can feel the words like speak to your heart so much. I felt like this guy prepared a message for me, you know. He started talking. He was the pastor up there was just saying how before he got married, he was falling into drinking, and he ended up like throwing his fiance against the wall because of his anger and his drunken rage. And I'm going, this guy's a preacher, and he was throwing this girl around. I'm like, I thought they were all holy, you know. I didn't know anything. And he was saying, God is so real, man. He had this look in his eye, and he was like, God is so real. If you just come to him, all the bad stuff in your life will start to fall away one by one. He is so real. And I was like, either this guy's like a cult leader, he's got everybody under his control, or God is real. And I've walked away from that encounter that I had when I was a kid, when I asked Jesus into my heart, and this whole just ridiculous life I've been living is because I don't have in my life